Hey guys, I'm Papa Pete, and welcome to the 125. The 125 is a YouTube show dedicated to the original Intellivision System and its 125 games created between 1979 and 1989. Now, the 125 is a little bit different in the fact that each episode consists of more than one video. There's going to be the review video, the video that talks about the history of the game and things like that, which is the one you're watching right now, but there's also going to be a separate gameplay video highlighting the gameplay from the system back in those days. Anyway guys, today's game is Microsurgeon, so stick around, let's talk about some operations. Microsurgeon was programmed by Levine, already known for programming PBA bowling for Mattel. Later on, he programmed Truckin', again for Imagic. But this was the first Imagic game he did back in 1982, and actually, it was one of the very four first Imagic games released for Intellivision.
Imagic experts have just created 4 new games for the Intellivision System. But beware, Imagic's demon attack will destroy you. Atlantis will send you to a watery grave. Microsurgeon will put you in the hospital. And Beauty and the Beast will push you right over the edge. Imagic for Intellivision, created by...
In Microsurgeon, the goal of the game is to rescue patients. You're a surgeon at the Xenon Medical Center, and you have to rescue patients who've just become victims due to a toxic gas explosion at a nearby tanker. The game's very reminiscent of movies like The Fantastic Voyage as well as Inner Space, in the fact that you have a small probe that has to enter the body to combat different ailments within. And it's a little bit different in the fact that in Microsurgeon, you're controlling it remotely. You're not shrunk down to be a pilot inside the body, but still, it has very, very huge similarities. Using your microprobe, you have to navigate throughout the body, curing ailments such as tapeworms, gallstones, kidney stones, cholesterol buildup, brain tumors, various things like that. All the while, you have a limited amount of power and 3 different treatments that you have to use. The goal of the game? Save the patient. What else? Sound easy enough? Well, let's take a look. In Microsurgeon, there are 2 main screens that you'll deal with. First of all, you'll have your gameplay screen, which is where you control the probe itself inside the body. And the second screen is actually the status screen. Now, although you'll spend most of your time on the gameplay screen, you have to keep good track of the status screen as well, because this is where you'll actually be able to see the patient's status overall, as well as the status of the individual organs in the system. You'll also keep track of your power from the screen. The top status shows your patient's overall condition, with the individual organs being shown underneath your power level just below. As you bring the condition and improve the conditions of each individual organ, as well as the infection, you will improve your patient's overall status. The primary treatment that you use are ultrasonic rays. Your probe shoots out ultrasonic rays to clear out the ailments. For example, the lungs is tar deposits. You have tar buildup in the lungs. It's shown by the black dots. Very easy to see. Shoot them all out, you'll clear up your lungs. The gallbladder and the kidneys both get stones, so you have to break those up. Tapeworms build up in the intestines, so as you go down towards the bottom of the body, you'll see the red lines that you have to clear out. Now, the intestine is actually the very bottom of the body. There's nothing shown in Microsurgeon below the intestines, because after all, it is a family-friendly game. Now, the other organs that you have to deal with are, 1, the brain, and the brain is something a little bit different. It'll have tumors that form, and they're gray wiggling masses which increase in size, and you have to fire and hit them multiple times usually to shrink them and then finally destroy them. It's really kind of challenging to do so, to get yourself in the right position, and at higher difficulty levels it's very hard. The heart is a little bit different. The heart doesn't have any direct ailments within itself. You go through the heart, you don't see anything to deal with, but you still could have a bad condition for your heart. But what you will have is you'll have gray buildup, cholesterol buildup in different arteries throughout the body. So you have to go around the entire body clearing out this cholesterol. As you clear out the cholesterol, your heart condition will improve. The final element that we have when it comes to building up your overall patient status is the infection. Infection is similar to the heart, but just different than most other organs. It as well also has things throughout the body, but it's not the gray buildup that you shoot with ultrasonic rays. It's actual bacteria, which are little green bug-like creatures which randomly pop up everywhere, and you have to shoot those with the second of your treatments, antibiotics. You turn on the antibiotics by hitting 8 on the keypad, and then you can fire those with your disc. It's just a little bit different element. It's the only place that you use antibiotics to clear out the infection. Now, if left untreated, any of your organs or the infection will gradually deteriorate. It'll go from fair to serious to critical to terminal. And once you've gotten to terminal, there's no more improving it. You can't bring it back from that level. And if you get 2 terminal items in your body, your patient will die. Now, it's not all bad, though, because in the same manner, if you manage to improve your condition in any individual organ from fair to good, it stays there. It won't deteriorate any further. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is this. You try to get your patient back into the best condition you possibly can, clear out all the infection, exit the body properly, which means through the eye, nose, mouth, or ear, and then you get your score. And listen, sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Well, we're just getting started. There are a couple different ways that you control the probe in Microsurgeon. First of all, the right-handed controller doesn't move the probe at all. All it does is the disc will shoot the chosen treatment in whatever direction you want. You can also choose between your treatments with 7, 8, 9, but at the end of the day, you can't move your probe with it. The left-handed controller, if you hit the disc will move the probe around. But if you hold in the side button while you hit the disc, it'll fire the selected treatment. What this means is you can play it a couple different ways. 2 people can play, with one person with the left controller moving the probe, with the other person firing the treatments from the right. Also, if you want to be really advanced, you can play 1 player with a controller in each hand, 1 disc controlling the movement, the other disc controlling the firing. This is a preferred method by a lot of people, and it's used in different games, such as, I believe they use it in Tron Deadly Disc quite a bit, although you do use the keypad with the other button to keep, because there's limitations on how many buttons can be pressed at one time with the controller. Anyway, the way that I always prefer to do it is I use the left-handed controller, and I just get used to holding in the side button when I want it to fire, and then moving when I released it. It's just a matter of personal preference, really, but that's the way I learned to play the game, and it's the way I still do today. At this point, I really haven't talked about moving the probe around the body very much. The main pathways for you to follow are the circulatory system as well as the lymphatic system. If you stay within the red arteries, the blue veins, or the orange parts of the lymphatic system, you're in the area where you're supposed to travel. Now, if you go outside of these zones into other parts of the body, white blood cells called phagocytes will fly onto the screen to attack you, draining your power. Now, there's also a different type of white blood cell which forms as the condition of your patient deteriorates, and they're called lymphocytes, and they're stationary and form in the arteries. You can really tell them they're white blobs that form where an artery would be. They're very slow to move through, and phagocytes will attack you very ferociously when you're in one of these lymphocytes. Now, this being said, you're not totally defenseless from the phagocytes, because you can fire ultrasonic rays and they will destroy the phagocytes. So when they're coming in to attack you, you should be trying to shoot them as quickly as possible. Now, at this point, I've already talked a lot about 2 of the 3 different treatments. I've talked about the ultrasonic rays, which they're the primary one they're going to use 99% of the time. Well, 90% of the time. Then there's the antibiotics, which you use strictly against the bacteria to increase and improve your infection levels. And finally, there's aspirin. And aspirin are only used when you're attacked by viruses. And viruses are very distinct. They're olive green critter-like creatures that fly onto the screen to attack and drain your probe of power. And you'll see them coming, and you really can tell when you fire an aspirin. You select aspirin by hitting number 9 on the control pad, and they're what you really have to take after those viruses quickly, because they'll drain your probe of power so fast. Now, speaking of power, I haven't really dealt with the power levels very much. It costs power just to move. There's 2 different actual methods of movement. As soon as you get playing the game, you realize that it is challenging to stay within the boundaries of the arteries, the veins, the lymph system. But you have the option of switching between fast and slow speed. when you're trying to get somewhere really quickly and your pathway is actually like the large arteries of the heart, you can flick on the fast and away you'll go. You'll go much, much more quickly to get from top to bottom of the body, for example. But that being said, it also uses more power. It uses triple the power, frankly. Now, as for other ways that you use your power when you shoot. So you'd think I only started with, I don't know, 200 or 300. It depends on the game that you're playing, how much power you start with. But it's also important to note that you can gain power as well. You can gain power by being accurate with your shooting. If you hit targets, whether it's a virus, whether with aspirin, whether it's a phagocyte flying on that you're aiming at, or even one of the ailments affecting one of the parts of the body, if you hit them with your first shot, hit multiple shots in a row, you can actually gain in power level. It's really a good strategy. Conserve your shots, stay within the boundaries of the arteries and veins, as well as the lymph system, and just try not to voyage out and waste your shots. Keep your power levels high and exit out through the eyes, ear, nose, or mouth. There's 3 different choices of patient condition that you can choose to start, as well as 3 different difficulty levels. Buttons on the keypad 1 through 3 select basic difficulty level, 4 through 6 select intermediate difficulty level, and 7 through 9 select advanced difficulty level. On top of that, if you choose the first button in those numbers, so in other words 1, 4, or 7, you're going to choose patient number 1. Always patient number 1 in fair condition, not too many ailments, easy to treat. So it gives you less of a challenge, but it's good to build up your skills. If you press the second column, so that's 2, 5, or 8, you'll get patient number 2. And that is a patient that's in critical condition. There's a lot of work to be done to save them, and it's very, very challenging at pretty much all levels. Finally, you have the third number, so that's numbers 3, 6, and 9. And with that one, you just randomly go out to the waiting room and grab a patient. One thing you'll notice, though, is on the status screen up in the top right-hand corner is a number. Every different patient has a number. Again, there's patient number 1, patient number 2, and then there's dozens of patients that you could possibly get if you choose that third number, with all kinds of different conditions as well. Now, that being said, if you do happen to see the same number a second time, it's going to be identical as to the one you found the first time. They don't change from time to time. It just picks a different number, which is always the same patient that you're treating. The scoring in Microsurgeon is shown by a bill at the end of the game. You don't see anything to do with score until the game is all over, whether it's you run out of power, your patient dies, you save them and you get out of the body properly or even improperly. Either way, you never are going to see the score until the very end, and it's shown as a bill which takes over the power line on the status screen. It's the status screen that's displayed after the game's over. It's very complicated, the formula they use to determine the score, but suffice it to say, the more difficult that you play, plus all kinds of different factors, is how many things you hit, how many organs you save, the condition of individual organs, but most importantly, the difficulty level, are going to affect the score or the bill that you get at the end of the game. Frankly, I don't put a whole lot of credibility in the score, because even if you let the patient die at high difficulty levels, you're going to get a massive bill. It doesn't matter. It's how difficult you play, it's how big of a score you get. At lower difficulty levels, the bills just aren't nearly as big. I just play the middle of the road game. I don't worry too much about the bill level. Now, in 1982, we thought the graphics in Microsurgeon were incredible. Downright kind of creepy and scary, frankly. It was just eerie to look at the guts inside the body. I don't know, at that time, remember what the different games we were dealing with. This one was so much more elaborate than other ones. I can remember thinking it looked just like Slim Goodbody you used to be on the Captain Kangaroo show. Anyway, overall, I'd say that the graphics the body showed in Microsurgeon, they're colorful, it's nice and bright, and overall, I just like it. The sounds of Microsurgeon, the basic sounds are absolutely fine. The shots going out, because it's kind of important to be able to hear when you actually fire the treatment, because sometimes it's difficult to No, exactly. You're holding that side button in, you're moving with the pad, and you're holding. So you want to be able to hear the shot go to know that you did it. And it's equally as important that when you actually hit an ailment or a phagocyte flying on screen or a virus, it makes a distinct sound so you know that you've hit it. Because sometimes you're reacting quite quickly. The ECG that's on the status screen is pretty accurate. It's kind of neat. It's great to listen to for a brief moment. Thankfully, you don't spend too much time on the status screen, but frankly, it's kind of piercing, and it will start to annoy you after not too long. I was actually playing the other day, and I stopped to take some notes on the screen, and my wife was in the other room, and that noise was going on, and finally she had to tell me to turn it off because it was driving her nuts. And it doesn't surprise me, but the sounds that I wanted to talk about in Microsurgeon most prominently are, first of all, as you get closer and closer to the heartbeat becomes more and more distinct until you're right inside the heart where the heartbeat just overwhelms all the other sounds. And it's kind of haunting and eerie, and it's really well done. And the exact same thing can be said for the lungs. As you move towards the lungs, you'll hear the breathing sound. As you get inside the lung, it just dominates the breathing in and out. And it's really masterful the way they did it. I remember getting this game when I was 14 years old, and how it was so much different than anything else I'd ever played up to that point. This game did a great job of actually giving you a goal to accomplish, saving the patient. I also remember the very first time that I was really noticed, I don't know, I'd probably seen it before, hadn't really clued in, but I found the first Easter egg I remember seeing in a game when I was up around the left shoulder, I think it is, and I saw RICK right there, clear as a bell in the body of the patient. And it's the first Easter egg I remember seeing. Rick Levine had slid it in there, and it's really kind of neat. I got to give credit to Imagic back at the time, because up to that point where Imagic and Activision broke ground and started recognizing their programmers, they tried to hide who they were, and I really thought they deserved credit for allowing the programmers to deservedly put things like that in the game to get some credit for their creations. It really was a masterful game, and for that to be in there, well, all the people of the day, it was just another element about the game that people loved about it. So overall, the graphics and the sound were well above average. As for the gameplay, it was intuitive. It was diversive. I mean, you had dozens of different patients to choose from. It was very unique. There'd never been another game like that before. It really introduced the medical or the surgical genre to video games. And most importantly, the gameplay was fun. And you know what?
What?
The gameplay is still fun today. So, taking all of these things into consideration, I'm going to give Microsurgeon by Imagic a 9 out of 10 rating. Well, guys, that's it for today's episode of the 125. Microsurgeon. Tommy, I hope you're listening, because I really think Microsurgeon will be a fabulous game to have on the Amico this October. Not only a new updated version with maybe some different graphics, but even the old original version as well, because it's still so much fun. Anyway, guys, thanks for spending a little bit of time with me today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time we have an episode of the 125. Take care.
Papa Pete, the old ass gamer. Papa Pete, the old ass gamer. If you haven't grown up by the age of 50, you don't have to.
I'm Rick Levine, programmer of the Intellivision games, Microsurgeon, PBA Bowling, and Trucking. And you're watching Papa Pete, the old guy gamer.
What the hell?